I had a lot of hope when it came to Wonder Woman 1984. The first Wonder Woman movie was just really good because of the chemistry the cast members had and the chemistry that Patty Jenkins, the director, had with the actors. I just really thought that everyone did so well together, and the writing was really good, and the movie just was something that we hadn't seen in a long time. I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of superhero movies really went downhill. There has been a lot of really good ones in the past few years, but I thought that Wonder Woman just really stood out in the crowd. I just thought that the movie altogether was a solid movie, so I was hoping that Wonder Woman 1984 would be good as well, but it sounds like I may have been just a little bit too hopeful, because Wonder Woman 1984 might just be another woke superhero film. Before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, follow me on social media for updates to topics I cover, and if you want to support even further, you can become a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month. I appreciate all of the support. So, I am going to be referencing a Bounding Into Comics article. Gal Gadot claims Wonder Woman 1984 reflects the chaos currently happening around the world. Now, this article will touch on Patty Jenkins' statements as well, but Patty Jenkins also said something very similar a couple of months back. So, Wonder Woman actress Gal Gadot recently discussed the upcoming Wonder Woman 1984 film and implied the film will be delving into modern-day politics and the chaos currently happening around the world. Why do people think that this is good? Why do they think that this is what people want to watch when they're going to a movie theater? I personally don't want to hear about current world politics when I go to watch a movie and when I'm paying a lot of money to be entertained, because that's what movies should be about, is entertaining people, not giving them these political talks, not telling them this is right and this is wrong and this is really the way that it happened. We should just be able to go to the movies and be entertained. Why can't we have that anymore? In an interview with Germany's Cinema magazine, Gadot spoke about the film and why certain filming locations were chosen. As translated by a Reddit user, Gadot was asked how impressive was the shooting, and she responded with, "We felt like Washington and the White House are very political places, and therefore the ideal backdrop for this film. We shot scenes at the Washington Monument and Pennsylvania Avenue, which was incredible." She continued to say the whole street was closed and it was so chaotic that it almost became symbolic for everything that's currently happening around the world, she continued. I think that it's kind of funny that they specifically wanted to shoot in Washington because the White House is very political. There are so many movies that have been filmed in front of the White House and in front of monuments in Washington. It's kind of cheesy at this point. Like, okay, we get it. You want to make a political statement. You want the movie to be uber political. Congratulations to you. You're just so stunning and brave. Things like the White House and these monuments are symbols of America, but they don't inherently represent any particular person's party or politics. They're symbols that represent us all, and any ideology that's being attached to them is simply the ideology and narrative of a person, and in this case, it's Gal Gadot. Continuing on with the article, she then added it was almost overwhelming and emotional. In addition to that, we shot the most emotional scene on the third day of filming already. This put us straight in the mood. Gadot would also be asked about the film's time period. She answered, "Indeed, you could say that the decade is a character on its own film due to the 80s being extraordinary in regards to fashion, politics, colors, music, and arts." She would then be asked about the film's costumes and explained how the film will attempt to capture the multiple fashions of the 80s. Gadot stated, "Absolutely, I still remember some of the scenes that we shot with over 200 extras. We explored every aspect of fashion back then, whether it's punk or funk and rock and roll or elegant looks. Everything is in there. We haven't seen too much of Wonder Woman 1984 at this point. We've seen a couple of trailers, but from what we've seen in the trailers, it does kind of seem like they did stay very true to fashion in the 80s, which unfortunately a lot of movies do mess up. They'll say, let's make a movie in the 70s or the 80s, and all of the fashion will be completely wrong. It does look like they tried to stay as 80s as possible, which is good, especially when that's kind of your marketing strategy, is like going back to the 80s and all of this nostalgia. But why we have to reference current day politics in these movies, I don't know. But I really also wanted to read through the second part of the article because I do feel it is extremely important, because Gal Gadot's statements alone don't really mean a lot. They don't really have a lot of substance, especially because they were statements just made kind of in passing during an interview, but Patty Jenkins basically said the same thing a couple of months ago. The article reads, back in August, director Patty Jenkins compared the film's time period to the current day, claiming that the United States is paying the price for the sins of the 80s. Why that sounded like a good basis for a movie, I don't know. Jenkins stated it was particularly the 80s because of the fact that that was the height of everything that we're now paying the price for. Jenkins added it was like we thought for sure that it could go on forever and there was going to be no price, and you could just have exponential growth. Then it could keep going and all of this excess. Now Wonder Woman 1984's associate producer added her own comments claiming the film's title was chosen because it was at the people of America's power and its pride. And she continued with, it was everything passion and wealth, and even violence was in excess. It was a decade of greed and desire. It was humanity at its best and its worst, she added. You can tell everyone's headspace in this movie and regarding this movie is the same. Everyone is thinking the same. Why do they think that this is a good thing? Why do they think that this is going to sell more movie tickets? I mean, seriously. Movies come down to representing things like ideas and morals, but if you're directly referencing politicians or current world events, it's bullshit, because not only does it date what you're trying to create, but it divides fans and it destroys escapism, which is what these characters were supposed to be about, and it ends up teaching no one because of the division. It makes it so that movies end up on a shelf collecting dust in 10 years, and no one is going to want to rewatch them because they're dated. It's a problem, and these directors and producers think it's fine to add these messages into movies when they're not fine to add, because they end up ruining these iconic characters. Now, during another interview, the associate producer and the director claimed that the film's villain is capitalism. Who is the villain of this next chapter? Well, there are multiple antagonists, but the real enemy, one might argue, is capitalism. And of course, the writer would also claim that the film will feature parallels between Pedro Pascal's villain, Maxwell Lord, and Donald Trump. Of course, they just have to go into referencing Donald Trump. We don't know specifically what events they're referring to will be in this movie, but since it's set in the 80s and of course the film's title is 1984, we can imagine that they're probably going to talk about the Reagan administration and the Cold War. But from what we know of Hollywood, it's all going to be one-sided symbolism that probably won't be showing the events of the administration from the 80s in a positive light at all. And for those of you who are listening, maybe you don't view politics from the 80s in a positive light, but if we don't show both sides, which isn't what we're going to get here at all, it sounds like, is that really fair? Because I sure as hell don't think so. Regardless of fair or not fair, I don't mind historical themes, but entertainment is supposed to be entertaining, and from reading this, it doesn't sound very entertaining at all. I don't want Orange Man Bad constantly thrown into my movies, because in 10 years I'm going to look back and watch this and say, wow, that was really blatantly obvious and this movie really sucked. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. It unfortunately sounds like Wonder Woman 1984 is going woke. It will have parallels to Donald Trump and what's currently happening around the world. But let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a like and share it. And of course, if you did not, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.